Yeah, so today's topic, we'll be covering crop sales, deductions, and grain payments. This is actually a continuation of last week's webinar. Last week, we spent some time covering how to enter harvest records into Traction, whether it was John Deere or a manual harvest record, and importing your scale tickets. Lots of ways to get the harvest records into Traction. Also talked about the grain inventory a bit last week. And so this week we'll be covering how to enter crop sales with deductions, or maybe without deductions. Maybe you just want to enter a quick harvest crop sale into Traction. Also, crop sales advances. Also discuss grain payments and how to see all these things in various different reports within Traction. Most of the stuff that we covered today will be in Plus or Pro. So when we talk about selling grain from a bin, for example, any sort of like inventory tracking of the grain starts with the Plus level. Um, there are some things you could do in just the basic level, but I think a lot of things that Scott shows you today will be in the Plus or the Pro. So Scott, do you want to take it from here?
I sure can. So this is kind of we're picking up where we left off last week. So kind of give just a really quick review of where we went off last week. So last week we talked about storage locations, how to set up storage locations. So in the resources area, storage, these are all the grain bins, the storage locations that I've got. So last week we kind of set up the start bin number one. The other thing we did last week is showed how to do field records, harvest field records in the program. We imported loads, added loads, and we added those to a storage location. So the start bin one, there's 38,363 bushels there. If I click on that, that kind of shows me these were the two fields that we harvested last week that went into that. We also did a transfer last week to transfer 10,000 bushels from one bin to a different bin to get to our 37,363. So this bin we're going to kind of focus on. We've harvested, we've put into that bin. We're going to this morning focus on what do I do as I start selling the bins. The other side of it, just to go back and show you kind of what we'll be looking at, is our field profit center reports. So these field profit center reports, if I go in and look at the two fields we worked on last week were the start number one and start number two fields. So if I do update report on that, there's not a lot here, but it's got, you can see I put some chemicals, some fertilizer, some equipment on it. And then we'll see, I've got a harvest up here. These two fields had 27,000 bushels harvested. I put no value on that crop. There's no value on the crop right now. I haven't sold it. I didn't assign a beginning value. So today as we sell it, I'm going to show how those sales values will come back and update this. So our main thing I can see right now, I've got $2 a bushel cost into that today, 27,000 bushels with it. So today I'm going to work through a few different scenarios on how to handle crop sales, some different things related to crop sales. So the first one I want to talk about, a question we get asked a lot of the time, is what happens if I get an advance on a sale? I've delivered those bushels to the elevator. I haven't really priced them yet. Maybe they're sitting on an open contract. Maybe they're just sitting on open storage, something like that, but I'm taking an advance on it. It's not sold. I don't have the final amount established. I'm just getting a payment. So we'll say maybe I'm getting today a payment of $10,000 for an advance on a crop sale. So how I would do that, that advance is going to be a deposit. So I'm going to go to my account register and I'm going to just add a new deposit for that. And my contact, that's going to be the elevator, the co-op, whoever it is that I'm selling it to. We'll say that's Eden Farmers Co-op. My amount is going to be the amount of the advance. And this one's really simple. The date's going to be the date of the deposit. For the account, I'm just going to use other on this. I'm just going to pick corn sales. And I'm going to add advance on 10,000 bushels. corn. Just a good note to yourself in that description, 10,000's there. I am not going to allocate this anywhere. This is key. I do not want to allocate this. The price of that sale is actually going to hit my fields when I sell the crop. So this one stays unallocated. The memo down here is probably the same thing on it. Advances on 10,000 bushels. If I have any other reference material, that reference material, anything that I've got, maybe the check stub, any type of settlement that might have come with it, I'm going to attach it there, put memos in there, and just save it. So what I've done with those $10,000, we'll see. It's gone into my checking account. Where I will see that, if I go down to my accounting reports and go to like a cash income statement, I will see corn sales. If I drill down to corn sales, I can see that 10,000 is there. So if that advance maybe came in, if I took that advance in December and I don't settle the grain till January, this is going to make sure for my taxes, I'm showing that $10,000 of income on my taxes for cash basis, but that's it. I haven't sold the grain. If I go to storage, everything's sold in storage. My field profit centers, nothing's changed there because I haven't sold the grain. So now we'll go through and we'll see that, so what happens when I finally settle the grain and get paid for the rest of it. So doing that, again, this could be done if this is maybe going to be paid later and settled earlier. I could do it as an invoice. My case, I'm just going to do it at the time of the deposit. We'll talk about invoicing a little bit later. So we'll say I'm now getting paid for that grain. They're going to take that advance out of what I get paid, but I'm settling those bushels on it. So I'm just going to go in and I'm going to add another deposit in here. And my contact, this again is going to be the same. In this case, Eden Farmers Co-op. Mine's going to be the same date because I'm not doing dates right on here. But now is when I'm going to go in and say, okay, so I'm not doing other. I'm selling crops. I am selling corn. My harvest product is my grain corn. The crop year, ignore these years. I've got some demo data here, but this is my 2026 corn. My storage location is that Stark bin. There's the number of bushels we saw in Stark bin. We're going to say I sold 10,000 bushels, and I'm going to sell it at an even $4 a bushel just to kind of show a price to give you a good example on it. So the next side of this is, well, I'm not going to get paid that $40,000. They're going to be taking some different things out of here. So first thing, most of the time what they're going to do is any advances, they're going to subtract that from what I'm paying. So what I want to do now is just subtract that advance out. So this one's pretty easy. Is the first time when I did the advance, I picked corn sales. So to subtract it, I'll pick corn sales again. My description, less advance previously received. A good memo to yourself here. And when I recorded that advance, I did it as a positive 10,000. So this time I'm going to do a minus $10,000. And again, leave it unallocated. So what this will do is for my cash basis side, the $10,000 advance, I showed that when I received the advance. When I do the sale now, it's going to do the additional $30,000. So I wind up with $40,000 total sales between the two. So the other thing you'll have a lot of times is going to be deductions off of that ticket. So what you're going to do is you're going to add rows on here for any types of deductions. If you had deductions for drying, for discounts, for like different fees, each of those you're probably going to want to add in here as a separate line. So I'm just going to add a row, and we're going to say I had some drying that was taken out of it. So that drying is actually an expense. I go through my list. It's not in the revenue side. It's not the liabilities. So I scroll through my accounts. I'm going to find an account for drying expense. And here I could add my description, whatever, drying, whatever it was, the details on it, if it was 10 cents. And I'm going to do this as a negative on it. So in this case, I'm doing, because I want to subtract it in the end, I got to think about it. This is a bit different. I'm doing a negative on it, a minus $1,000. Minus that one go to drying expense. This one is going to get a little weird because I'm doing a minus to drying expense. It's not really going to reduce drying expenses. This is a deposit. It's going to add to it. I'll kind of show you how it works when we're all done here. So, and this one I do want to allocate. So the allocation side, I'm going to go and allocate it to zones. Now, the zones you add it to, it kind of depends on how you're looking. First thing I'm going to do is filter all my zones by my cornfields. So there are all my cornfields on here. Now, if my grain's been sitting in the bin and I'm not, I have no idea that this just I want to spread across all fields. The easy button on this is just to spread it across all fields. Now, if I knew there were some fields that were really high moisture and I want that cost to go to those fields and not others, I could go in and pick and choose which ones are there. Um, Most of the time, that's not the there's a lot of different things to think about if you're going to be doing that. I mean, if the result of that is just because of the timing that it was higher moisture of those fields, that timing is probably not fair to penalize those fields more than the others. But there's something about those fields causing that moisture to be higher. I may want to just allocate to those fields. Again, the easy button is just apply it across all my corn fields. And this is going to split it based on the acres of those fields. So I would just keep doing. I'm only going to do that one simple drying example. If you had storage in there, if you had fees, any of that, each of those you're going to do as a negative in there. I see a question there and I enter grain sale. I've been adding the moisture deduction such as a grain sale and note in the memo less moisture. Yeah, you could do that, Amy. That's really up to you. You could just, in your case, it sounds like you're 49, instead of doing 40,000, you're just taking it out of there. That's really up to you on that side. The advantage to doing it this way is when I look at my pricing on my field profit centers are really going to tie back to what I sold it for. Or if this was 39,000 instead of 40, it's going to look like I sold it at 390 instead. So as long as you understand that price, it'll kind of work its way out. If you don't allocate it, Tom, it's just going to sit unallocated. It's not going to go anywhere. So if you want it to go to fields, it's got to go to fields. And if you don't feel like drying's a cost of the fields, you absolutely don't have to. Me personally, I kind of want to make sure those fields get back to what I actually wound up getting on it. So again, memo here, I could put settlement, maybe final, whatever you want on that memo, and then just hit save and close. And now this is going to be the key. Anytime that I sell a crop, it's going to say this deposit can be used to calculate a new average price for the selected crop. Do you want to apply this new average crop to all the existing field records? Always going to say yes here. So what the program's going to do is every time that I sell some 2026 corn, it's going to take into account the number of bushels sold, the price, and then it's going to average it over time. So where I'll start seeing that average, I'm going to show you the end result of what I've done here. So let's start out. We'll go to our storage area. First thing we'll see in Stark 1, I can see my bushels have been reduced. I can see those 10,000s came out of my bushels. So we can see my inventory's kind of been reduced for it. The next thing to show how that pricing works, if I look at my field detailed report, and if I pick those same two fields again and hit apply, we'll see now those fields have $4 a bushel on them. Right now my profit's at $1.86 a bushel on it. The last thing just kind of to point out, and this is probably one of the most important things you worry about, is what do my cash books look like? So my corn sales now, I've got 287,000 total. If I look at corn, I can see right there's the 40,000 total. I've got a plus 10,000 for the advance, minus 10,000. So that 10,000 bushels at $4 a bushel in total is right. Now again, my case, that advance being done the same day really didn't make a lot of difference. But again, the important part is if that advance came in December and that crop was settled in January, you're getting the income reflected in the right tax year. So in that case, this would be 10,000 in one year and 30,000 in the other year. Now again, mine's showing the corn sales for that 40,000, the gross $4 a bushel. Where I'll see like the drying expense, if I'll go down to drying expense, this is where we're going to see. I did that 1,000 as a negative 1,000 through the deposit, but you can see it's adding 1,000 to the expense just like we want it to. So everything's up to date correctly with that. So any questions there? Okay. We'll keep going. So I'll go through a second situation. Maybe it's the end of the year. I've got grain that I've sold. I've delivered it to the elevator. It's all been settled. It's been priced. And I tell the elevator to hold the payment until next year. But to get my inventory right and to get that pricing in there, I really want to record that sale on right now. And how you do that, the term's a little bit different, but we treat those as invoices. So invoices, we tend to think about invoicing custom work, invoicing landlords. You can also technically invoice a grain elevator when you've sold grain and they're not going to pay you until later. So again, this is typically something you're only going to do when the final price, everything's settled, the final price has been established. You're just waiting for them to cut a check for it. So what I'll do, I'm just going to go in and add a new invoice in here. And I will pick out Eden Farmers Co-op again. We're just saying I'm selling the same place. And I'll say corn is what I'm going to put in there. My due date we'll say is actually 01/31/27. And then whatever the input, I think you're probably not going to print an invoice and give it to the grain elevator. So most of this really doesn't matter. But what I'm going to do in the invoice, this crop section is going to work just like the crop sales and the deposits work. So I can go down there and say, okay, I'm going to pick, just like I did before, pick my corn sales, pick my harvest product, corn grain, pick my crop year, 2026, pick my storage bin, my start bin 1. And if I sell another 10,000 bushels, maybe this one I sell at 450 a bushel, I can do that there. Now, same thing, I'm not going to take the time to do it, but if I had any deductions there for drying, for discounts, this other area is where I could do all those deductions, discounts, drying. So if I wanted to go in and do drying again, I haven't set one up. We'll just go ahead and add drying to the list here. So I'll say drying and pick my account. Again, is going to be drying expense. Put in, and here's one that if you want to do quantities on the invoice to track it. So if it's 10,000 bushels at 10 cents a bushel minus, again, minus there. These bushels is just going to be used as just a note on it, but the invoices do allow you, and I guess back, I could have done the same thing back on my deposit using the other with quantity. Bad on me, I didn't think of that side of it, but you can now use those quantities with it. So I'm getting everything down so that my total down here, my net amount, is going to work out to the difference on it. So right now my net amount is $44,000. I'm just going to save that. So again, I can see 44,000 there. Save and close. Again, same comment in here. This invoice can be used to calculate a new average price for the selected crop. Do I want to apply the new price? Yes, I do. So to show you what I've done now, if I go back to the storage area, the way Traction does it, when we're keeping your inventories, we're going to count everything that's sold, not just things that you've been paid for, but these inventories are always going to count for everything that's sold, whether it's been sold via a invoice or sold via a actual deposit. So if I go into this, I can see those 10,000 bushels are now for that invoice are coming out of it. I can see here I've sold 4.50 a bushel on there for 10,000 bushels, $4 a bushel. I can see my average price is 4.25. And if I now go look at my field profit center statement, my field profit center statement will see my price now is 4.25. So what it's done, I've sold half my bushels at $4, half at 4.50. The average price is 4.25. So over time, this field profit center statement, the report's going to get more and more accurate based off what you're actually doing. Now, the key to all of this, I didn't do a deposit. I didn't put anything into my account register. So if I go back and look at like my cash income statement, my corn sales haven't changed. I haven't gotten paid anything. There's been no deposits, so everything's still set there. So I take kind of the final step on that is if I then finally get paid for that, I can go into my invoicing side of this and say my invoice side. If I now get paid for those bushels, I'll just go to Eden Farmers Co-op, just select that invoice and say receive payment, pick my checking account. If I was just getting a partial payment, I could put the amount paid. In my case, I'm going to put the whole amount there, save and close. And now if I go look at my income statement, my cash income statement, now I'm going to see that that $45,000 just went there. The extra $1,000 of drying expenses hit. Everything's updated. So, any questions on what I've done there? Can you do this with contracts that have been hauled to the? Yeah, Amanda, you can't really do that. The contract side, but again, this is meant to be really that I'm selling it when it's come out of my inventory and I know the amount sold. I mean, if you've delivered on those contracts and the final price is not exactly established, the part with those invoices is you can put in a temporary invoice and then you can go back and then with that temporary invoice, you could go back and make adjustments to it later. So there are kind of ways to do that, but if it's just having a contract, this probably isn't the way to do it because this is when the grain's actually coming out of inventory. So I think probably the last thing I want to cover yet, and this was a change that was made a few months back, is talking a little bit about a new report that's kind of useful on the crop sales side. This general ledger detail report, back a few months ago, we added this quantity one and quantity two so that any transactions that have quantities on them, I can start doing quantities. So let's go ahead and we'll take a look at kind of how this shows for like corn sales. So a couple things on this. My general ledger detail report, kind of a shortcut here. This defaults to showing all of my accounts. All of those accounts, most of the time you want to, all of the accounts is good when you're printing out a big report for your accountant. If you're just looking at it, you probably don't want all of the accounts. So kind of a quick way where you can narrow this down. I'm just going to select all accounts, select it again, turn them all off. I'm going to close my folder for assets, close my folder for liabilities, equity. I'm going to go down to my revenue now, and I'm just going to pick out corn sales. I'm going to scroll down to my expenses, and right now I'm just going to pick my drying expense to narrow it down, hit apply and hit update. So now I've got that report broke out between it. So what this report's going to do is that it's giving me for any time period the total for each of my sales that I've got. It's giving me the bushels sold as well as the total amount. And then it takes the total amount divided by, in this case, the total bushels to figure my average price. So my average price here is 416 because I've got some sales in here that I previously did on last year's crop. So this is averaging it out between all of those. Couple things on here. We show a quantity one and a quantity two. Quantity two is mostly for livestock. So when you sell livestock, you can do head and for pounds. If I'm never using quantity two, I don't want to see it. This little gear button up here, I could just say, don't show me quantity two, and that'll narrow down what I'm doing. Um, this report's nice. I mean, if you want, if you're saying, well, how do I get this just for 26 grain, 25 grain? We don't have all those filters in it today. That's something for the future. But your descriptions are going to tell you this does have a real nice CSV export. So I know you'd rather have it in the program. I agree. It's something for us to work on. But for now, that CSV export, you can take these reports, dump them into Excel, and you can do different analysis. As I get in, then like my drawing, and it's probably good that I made the mistake. So my drawing, I can see, okay, there's from the invoice. The invoice I put in the 10,000 bushels on it. This other one I didn't. So that other, and this is probably for a different session, but we added a few times back this other with quantity option. So real quick way, if you go back and say, okay, this deposit that I did, I'd really like to see the bushels associated with it. Easy fix for this. I can just click on that and edit that transaction right here. And all I got to do is go to that drying expense, switch it to other with quantity, put in my 10,000 bushels. I'm not changing anything on the accounting side. I'm just switching it from plain old other to other with quantity, added the 10,000 bushels, hit save. And now when I go back, I've added those 10,000 bushels. So it's easy. If you want to go back, we release that part way through the year. So if you've got transactions you did earlier in the year, you didn't use that other with quantity, you want to fix them now, this is the easy place to go back and click on them and fix them for now. So, and Natasha, as far as saving that layout for future use, we don't have that. It's a good suggestion, something to look at. It is right now. It's kind of each time I don't remember. We'll just go ahead and exit and go back. I don't remember if we always default to all or if we default. We're always going to default it to the last that you picked. So if I've been looking at corn and drying expense and I go back and do some more work and want to return and see, it's going to return to where I left off the last time. So. Brian, I'm getting about to the end of my time. I'll open it up. There have been no questions. Either I put everybody to sleep or I've answered the
No, actually,
questions.
there's actually been some questions through here. So somebody did ask a question about adding equipment to the field profitability reports, and I know we talked about that last week and kind of went through a harvest record. And I think if you pull up that field profitability report, I mean, you'd see like the cost of the combine showing up there, the cost of the grain trucks, and things that you used for that harvest record would appear on that report, and it would tie the actual cost to this field profitability report. So those numbers are always changing based on the more expenses you've allocated to that machine or the number of fields that you harvested with that combine, for example. But yeah, that was a good question there.
I think that's a topic for a whole other session that we've done as far as where those costs come from. Okay, Brian, I'll turn back to you. Yeah, Google's logging me out, Brian, so I can't. It's forcing me to change my back. I can't show the last screen.
Well, this is
Sorry,
the beauty of our
being
technology,
online.
right? At times.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, actually, I think I could probably share my screen. Yeah, just to wrap up things for today. Again, thank you, Scott, for covering grain sales and the different things you can do with that. Lots and lots of different options, and just really depends on your preference. We will be covering these topics again. So we'll be covering the exact same part one, part two series, just for the people who maybe have some friends or family that couldn't make the live webinar and want to sit through this again. We'll be happy to do that over. And so the first one's going to be August 18th, getting ready for harvest record keeping. And then we'll do a part two of that on September 2nd, which is the exact same one that we covered today. There might be a few things that we think of after the webinar today that we wish we would included in the webinar. So, we're always trying to improve the webinars every time we do them. So hopefully you get value every time you come. Then, like we always say, if there's any other topics that you want to cover, love to have that information from you. So feel free to reach out. I did have one question from can't remember the name exactly, but they didn't have the recording from last week. So I did email that person the link to find that recording. But if any of you don't have access to the recording, let me know. But there should have been an email sent to you all last week if you did attend the webinar last week. Um, yeah, we have a place for all those recorded webinars, and yeah, just let me know if you don't have access to that location. I'll be more than happy to share that with you. But that link is actually included in all the recording emails that I send out to you, and you'll get that email later today. Other than that, yeah, appreciate your time. And Scott, again, thank you for helping us out with the webinar this morning, and we'll hope to see you at the next one. Thank you.